Welcome, welcome. We'll just give people a minute here to come on through this Friday morning. Happy morning to everybody. Hope everybody made it through April Fool's Day without too much, mean-spirited funness. Kimi, thanks so much for being here. You're in Alameda this morning?
That's right, yeah.
All right. And I know you're going to be in the city later today, Friday, April 2nd. We're going to shout that out here in a minute too.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and get going. We appreciate everybody showing up Friday morning. We know there's a lot going on in our lives. We know we got a lot of Zoom. We all got a little bit of Zoom fatigue. But but we're gathering here and with the Poetry Summit, sharing some amazing experiences. We're hearing voices and connecting in pretty powerful way. So appreciate our speakers like we have here today, and for people showing up and being present for this amazing buffet of poetry and spoken word. So my name is Colin Schmidt. I'm the Executive Director of America Scores Bay Area. We do soccer and poetry and service learning programs for youth at public schools around the Bay Area. And we're part of a national network of affiliates where we have over 1,000 writing coaches and over 12,000 poet athletes who are part of a team and who are expressing themselves and learning life skills. So the Poetry Summit is our way to reach out to a broader audience, to share the work that we're doing, and to connect with these the literary enthusiasts that are all around us. I want to mention that somebody here in our live session is going to win a prize, a raffle prize. It's going to be a Scores poetry gift bag and have some Scores swag in there. And it's also going to have 2 tickets to our big event coming up later in April 21st, Rising Voices, where we bring some of our amazing poet athletes to the Zoom stage and share their work. We also have Brandon Leake, a professional spoken word poet, artist who won America's Got Talent. First time ever a spoken word artist has won, one of these crazy national game shows, but he was the Golden Buzzer winner. And he's going to be on working with our kids at the Rising Voices event. Thanks also to our summit sponsors, Soma Equity Partners and the Stack Brand Group. Thank you for allowing us to gather here this week. I want to remind people that in addition to the live sessions where you can win the Score swag, all of this is available via replay. All the 20+ sessions we've had, the 40+ speakers, powerful voices, is available for you to digest over time, and really encourage people to check out some of the stuff. We've got youth voices and professional voices, authors, poets, activists, educators, a lot of social justice themes out there that we've been talking about this week, and the power of poetry to make that change. So anyways, but let's jump into it today. We got a very special session. Kimi, we're so glad that you could make it, that we were connected with you. Kimi is the Poet Laureate of Alameda City. She joins us there from today. She is going to talk to us about poetry recipes and myth and music and mysticism. Am I getting this right?
Oh, mysticism, image, it's all in there.
It's all in there. So Kimi, let me turn it over to you to welcome you here and to tell us just a little bit more about yourself and to tell us what we're going to be doing this morning.
Okay. Thank you so much, Colin and Alicia. So yeah, I am, my day job is a teacher. I'm a special education teacher, and I write about that a lot. I studied at Narofa Institute in Boulder, Colorado, with a lot of the beat poets who are passing, a lot of them are passing on, Allen Ginsberg and Diane DePrima, Michael McClure, Robert freely, a bunch of them. So that's what was influenced my development as a poet, as well as my my life experience. And I have a couple books, but I have a recent book called While and Wing, and it's available on Bookshop or Amazon or City Lights, various bookstores. So
one more time, Kimmy. I just want to get that in the chat real quick.
While and Wing.
Yeah, thank you. Great.
And today, I'm going to try to cover 3 areas briefly, because they're things that could, you could spend days on, but I'm not going to do that. And it's sort of the ingredients for poems that I find to be most helpful when I'm thinking about my poetry and how evaluating it. So those 3 things are image, myth, and music. There's also some magic, and the formal terms they used to use were they used sometimes orphanopoeia, melopoeia, and mythopoeia. So it's those 3 ingredients that all poets seem to, they as well as logopoeia, which is meaning, of course. Those are key ingredients in all poems, and most poems have all of them, but I tried to select some that sort of emphasized one or the other. So I'm going to begin just sort of by introducing the idea and myself by doing one of my poem songs called The Tongue's Cut Sparrow. And you'll hear, there's mythology, there's obviously music, and there's image as well, I think, in it. But I just thought it might be a good way to begin. A house sparrow billows her body with breath and surrenders rapture. A woodsman found her wounded, brought her home to convalesce. His wife grew jealous of her song and so cut out her tongue. We blaze a trail cut in tongues, broken with yearning for the sensate song of the wild. Wild desires plague our dreams, endless doors to claimless territories. The feral scent is keen upon us. We've lost our nature and have no way to follow. But because we are creatures of passion and promise, because we believe in the impossible, we barter. For the child a viper strikes out of an unrequited love of innocence. For them who venture into Hades to unravel raptures of the deep in sweet, liquid lullaby. Saints and seraphim are tiresomely pious. They envy our sordid self-absorption, our tactile reality, our terrible desires. Love, Liebe, believe. In gods with feathers, fetlocks, and fins. Breathe sweet tobacco and answer the razor's keening by dancing with the sun in a stand of cottonwood to retrieve the sparrow's song. Wild desires plague our dreams. Endless doors to claimless territories. The feral scent is keen upon us. We've lost our nature and have no way to follow. We've lost our nature and have no way to follow. And we must retrieve the sparrow's song. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I wanted to do that, and I think I might do a couple of other things in a bit, but I'd like to just try and plunge into this a little. So the poems I chose, when I was taught this, there was a lot of classic poems that were taught, classical, basically the old canon. And I chose poems that are from multicultural poets because I believe that's relevant, and a lot of my poetry is fairly political too. I mean, all poetry is political, but so there's so much happening in the world today. I thought it was important to incorporate that. So the first thing I was going to talk a little bit about was melopoeia. And then if you would like to respond to this, I want to give time, 5 or 10 minutes after each part so that you can have a little time to practice doing this technique. So the first one is melopoeia. And I chose poems that I'm sharing the camera right now. So let's see. So the first poem I chose is by Henry Dumas. And it's called Son of Mississippi. And I'll probably read it incorrectly, but you'll hear the music in this poem for sure. It's almost like a blues song. Up from Mississippi I grew, bare walk and cane stalk make a hungry belly talk. Up from the river of death, walk bare and stalk cane make a hungry belly talk. Up from Mississippi I grew, up from the river of pain, out of the long red earth dipping, rising, spreading out in deltas and plains, out of the strong black earth turning over by the iron plow, out of the green earth dripping with moss and snakes, out of the loins of the levied hands, muscling in its American vein, the great father of waters, I grew up. Beside the prickly bowl of white, beside the bone-filled Mississippi, rolling on and on, breaking over, cutting off, ignoring my bleeding fingers. Bear stalk and sun talk, I hear a boll weevil talk, 'cause I grew up beside the ox and the bow, beside the rock church and the shack grow, beside the fox and the crow, beside the melons and maize, beside the hound dog, beside the pink hog, flea hunting, mud grunting, cat fishing, dog pissing in the Mississippi, rolling on, ignoring the colored coat I spun of cotton fibers. Cane sweat, river boat, nigger bone floating. Up from Mississippi I grew, wailing a song with every strain. Woman gone, woe man too. Baby cry, rent pause, daddy flew. So I might not read all of every poem, but you can hear the music in that poem, from the repetition, from the rhyme, of course, and the rhythm. And I thought it's a really moving poem by him, and gives an example of Melopoeia. And the other one I chose is by Ayodele Nzinga. She is a local poet here in the Bay Area, in Oakland. And she just came out with a book recently called Sorrowland Oracles, I think it's called. And when she recites, it's very dramatic. And the form of this poem is like, it's thin, but I think it's because of the title, which is In the Land of the Skinny Gods, but that when she reads, she tends to just keep going and going. So I will read maybe a page of this. I don't want to read too much. In the land of skinny gods, there is naked famine and bottomless want. The people wander, eyes closed, voiceless, afraid of punishment, toes to the line, ignoring the crime, standing in lines, praying better times. Skinny gods don't hear, they don't answer, blood dripping from eyes, hands in their pants at the crossroads. I have to read a little more. Of meaning and power. They don't want you to see them unrobed, lying and stealing, legs spread, syphilitic, infected with politics, trying to assassinate a paradigm shift, rewarding those who follow, targeting those who drift to the left or live and die to do right, proclaiming, drink dirt, call it water, fouling the natural order, skinny gods made of plastic, and napalm dangling from chains of depleted uranium. So you can hear a lot of internal rhyme in there, and rhyme and internal rhyme, and it's just really powerful stuff. And then the last one, I'm not going to read all of this because it's really hard to read. This is from Technicians of the Sacred, which was put together by Jerome Rothenberg, an amazing anthology of poems from all over the world. Poems and also chants and spells and things that were not considered literature, I think, until he put them in a book. So I just wanted you to hear how this goes. The only reason I know how to do it kind of is because I heard him do it. And this is the 10th horse song of Frank Mitchell. It's Navajo. Okay, so win gone n. Go to her, my son, and win, and go to her, my son, and win, and gone. Go to her, my son, and win. Go to her, my son, and win, and gone. Because I was thin boying, raised in the dawn, and win and go to her, my son, and win and go, win and gone, and leafing through the horse house, the blue stone, home and gone, and win and go to her, my son, and win win and gone, and leafing through the house, the shining home, and win and go to her, my son, and win and win and win gone. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. So you can see that there's a lot of ways to do this, a lot of things you can just put in whatever you want to make the sound and make the rhyme and make the music of the poem. I mean, the key is music. Making it musical engages us in a way that that is extremely powerful. So I was thinking if you would like to write a little bit. I didn't know I wouldn't be able to see you. I can't see you, but
Kimmy,
yeah.
if you want, we can bring the attendees' videos and audios on if you want that, if that would work for the session for you.
I think it will. It feels a lot better to be looking at faces.
Okay. And attendees, once your camera's on, if you don't want to be shown, please turn them off because we are recording. So we want to give people that option not to show themselves if they want. All right, go ahead, Kimmy.
Thank you. Okay. So whichever piece caught your attention, helped, enraptured you, try to use something from those, from that piece or all of them to write something. Just play a little bit. And I'll set the timer. Let's see. I'll set the timer for 5 minutes, okay? And then I think maybe at the end, if anyone wants to read, to share what they wrote, that would be great too. But I'll probably try and go through all 3 things before we do that. So you have something to choose from. Okay, so I'm setting the timer. And right away.
Kimmy, as people are gathering their thoughts and writing, do you write when you write? Do you write with music? Do you write with silence? Does it matter?
Well, I write with anything. As my life has become more complicated, I just write. Whatever's happening in the background is whatever's happening. Writing to music is wonderful. I spent a long time going to bars and writing to jazz, which was really fun. Someday I have to go and dig up those writings. So yeah, and sometimes I when I'm listening to a song, I might take the rhythm of the song and put it into the poem that I'm writing. That can be really fun too. Yeah,
I can see how that could help find rhythm and beat and just the sounds of our life, right? For an exercise like this, for those of us who are, who look at the blank paper and have a heart rate increase, is there other prompts that you might offer for after respond, in trying to respond to some of those readings?
Well, sometimes a word or a line might stand out, just suddenly stick in my head for whatever reason. So I might even write that line or word or phrase and then write off that. That can be really fun to do because, our minds are choosing the things that are most significant to us at all times. So if you just allow your mind to do that, that's really helpful. And when I write, to whatever, I don't think about what I write. I kind of use this, I guess you call it stream of consciousness approach, where whatever comes out, comes out. And then later on is when I revise and change and hack away at it. So I would, just allowing yourself to enjoy whatever words or sounds is a great way to just go for it,
Kimmy, we hear the sound of the rustling paper of the poetry. FYI.
That's weird. I can't stop the timer. Okay. Stop. Okay, guess I'll stop now. Okay. So, all right. I hope that you were able to get squeeze out a few lines there. And everything you write, you can always take on later. And if you have any questions, please ask. That's fine. The second ingredient to poetry, to my way I like to write, is using mythopoeia. And what I realized is that, yes, in my poem I referred to some Greek myths and a Japanese fairy tale, because that's what I know. That was my experience. I learned more Greek myths than anything else in my schooling. But really, what's wonderful is people create their mythology or use icons and ideas that are mythological, that have become culturally mythological. So I'd like to share with you a few poems or pieces of poems. I'm not going to read the whole thing, they're too long. But this is one by Lucille Clifton, where I love the way she takes Sleeping Beauty, which is, of course, that old fairy tale, and then completely changes it, makes up her own story for it. When she woke up, she was terrible. Under his mouth, her mouth, turned red and warm, then almost crimson as coals, smothered and forgotten in the grate. She had been gone so long. There was so much to unlearn. She opened her eyes. He was the first thing she saw, and she blamed him. And this is a piece from Joy Harjo's. It's called The Flood, and you can see how she takes the water monster and imbues it with all of her imagery and ideas and experience with her life. So I'll just read a few stanzas. It had been years since I'd seen the water monster, the snake who lived at the bottom of the lake. He had disappeared in the age of reason as mystery that never happened. For in the muggy lake was the girl I could have been at 16, wrested from the torment of exaggerated fools, one version anyway, though the story at the surface would say car accident or drowning while drinking, all of it eventually accidental. The story is not an accident, nor is the existence of the water snake in the memory of the people as they carried the burden of the myth from Alabama to Oklahoma. Each reluctant step pounded memory into the broken heart, and no one will ever forget it. When I walk the stairway of water into the abyss, I return as the wife of the water monster, in a blanket of time, decorated with swatches of cloth and feathers from our favorite clothes. The stories of the battles of the water snake are forever ongoing, and those stories soaked into my blood since infancy like deer gravy. So how could I resist the water snake, who appeared as the most handsome man in the tribe, or any band whose visits I'd been witness to since childhood? So there she's taken that idea, taken the water monster, and created her own myth, which I think is really amazing and beautiful. And then the last one is by Rosemary Katakalos. I'm actually not very familiar with her poetry, but I found it in an anthology called Currents of the Dancing River. And again, there's this mythological feeling to the poem. The references of things that are old, the stones in the poem become myth. And just see what you think. Paying respects. El antiguo Camposanto San Fernando. The final majesty of stones, in all the years and years of stones. Stones of small children buried while they ran at play. Stones of aproned grandmothers resting under transplanted front porch ferns. Near the iron fences, stones of incontinent old men in khakis, left over from Villa's days. Near the rose bushes, stones of young lovers with the right to sleep together at last. Nearest the sun, stones of mothers and fathers still in their prime, stilled in their prime. And the stones of the unknown dead, the ones I kiss and kiss because their names and times are so worn away that only my lips are able to feel them out. Leal, Ferreiro, Gonzaga, Araceli, Seferina, Rafael. They ask what I want of them. They say this is an encampment of saints whose beds have long been made, that I disturb the peace with my infernal comings and goings. My talk of choices. Who gave them a choice? They have no patience with a woman, only flirting with the living, only flirting with the dead. So, yeah, there's so many poems I could choose that reference myth. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to say? Okay. The point is that we make our own mythology and we bring in whatever ideas and objects. It's amazing how huge, how great and luminescent something can be, just an object. I mean, it could be our cat. You know, it could be a flower at the windowsill. It doesn't, so many things, but they take on a mythological feeling when you imbue them with that feeling and you give them breath and breadth and repetition. And obviously, you know, there's a melos, there's melopoeia in this poem too, with the repetition. But those are the ones I chose for mythopoeia. And let's see how we're doing. 108. Okay, so I'm going to do another 5-minute writing, unless you really don't want to. And give you a chance to explore the idea of myth. Hey, Kevin. Starting the time.
Let's do it. We like that timer, the chime timer. It's not so fierce as most timers. We let ease your way back in. And as people start to jot down their thoughts and objects, could you share just a little bit more too, just about objects that you've, starting points for you? Yeah, what you've written about, what you've myth.
And the one that I sang when I was a little girl, I did have a couple of books, not many, of Japanese fairy tales. And since I am half Japanese and that is my heritage, and that is, it's a largely unknown culture to me. Because I grew up, I was born in North Carolina. I lived in the South in my young years, and had very little contact with even with my relatives. We were spread out all over the continent because of World War II and the persecution of the Japanese and the internment of some of my relatives, and the running, everyone basically had to run away from Hollister, California. That's where my father and grandfather started out. They had to run away. So it was very difficult for me to connect with them. And so these myths, story tales became really important to me. And I think I internalized a lot of them. And as we all do with fairy tales and stories we hear as young children, they come to take on a meaning that reflects something significant in our lives, some event, something usually emotional and gripping. So, the fairy tales, I think I sometimes refer to them in that way. And then, of course, just any stories I hear that I'm taken with, I can start to take elements and recreate or create my own mythologies from them. But I guess I thought it was important to emphasize that it doesn't have to be a mythology from any specific place. It can be your own mythology. That's really key.
Mm-hmm. you use the word imbue, I think, if I'm saying it correctly.
Imbue.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Just whatever you pour into it, your own impressions, your own interpretation. You know, words can be interpreted in so many ways, which is the beauty and the danger of poetry. So to just give your own meanings, make up your own meanings, make up your own definitions. It's all of it is allowed, you know. The poetry police are gone. We can write what we want, the way we want to write it.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I've done something to this timer that I don't understand. I pushed something, made it hard to stop. So hopefully you explored that just a little bit. And I think I think I'll do another one of my songs that's an a cappella song, because I'm hearing all the time about the Derek Chauvin trial, about the killing of George Floyd. And of course I wrote this during, when that happened. Why would anybody want to see somebody die? Why? Some things are not meant to be burned into your mind. We cannot erase them no matter how hard we try. They traumatize and haunt us until the day we die. A curriculum for fools is what we learned in school. Fools. Now is the time to exhume all the skeletons of truth. Remove every arrow and tend to every wound. Restitution and repair are the tools that we can use. The blood of the innocent saturates this country. This is our inheritance, whether or not we believe. This is our inheritance, whether or not we believe. This is our inheritance, no matter or whether or not we believe. So, yeah, troubling times. All right, we're getting close to the end. So I think what I'll do is just show you a couple of these phonopoeia, imagistic type poems. Diane de Prima always used to talk about casting an image, like casting a spell. And I feel like some images are like that. They're just so crystal clear in our minds. So let me share this again. So these are some haiku from the concentration camps. And a haiku is a great kind of way to play with image because it paints a picture very quickly and clearly. So a couple of these are being arrested, at home peony bud still firm. Handcuffed and taken away, I see my husband even today. This one is particularly imagistic. Withered grass on ground, army tank creaking in the wind. Even the croaking of frogs comes from outside the barbed wire fence. This is our life. Thin shadow of tule reed, blazing sunset on barbed wire fence. So you see how those completely capture an image. And one of a fun form I've played with sometimes is called a high bun, where you write a haiku and then you write some prose that sort of is related to it, and then another haiku, and then another section. So that's just an aside of something that you might want to try sometime. And then the last thing I want to read is just very different, a different way of capturing image. It's by Martina Espada, My Cockroach Lover. The summer I slept on JC's couch, there were roaches between the bristles of my toothbrush, roaches pouring from the speakers of the stereo. A light flipped on in the kitchen at night, revealed a Republican National Convention of roaches, an Indianapolis 500 of roaches. One night, I dreamed a giant roach leaned over me, brushing my face with kind antennae and whispering, "I love you." I awoke slapping myself and watched the darkness for hours because I realized this was a dream, and so that meant the cockroach did not really love me. Okay. So I'm glad that you're liking the work I'm reading. There's so much, it's so hard to choose. I mean, it's so hard to choose poems to exemplify this or that, but I'm hoping that they just kind of gave you a little feeling of those particular ingredients to poems. And it just seems like to me, if you have, well, at least two of them, it's really going to help make your poem pop out, become, alive. So would anyone like to share anything that they've written? And you don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Most people have their cameras off, so I can't see anybody's face except for Kevin. Well, if you would unmute yourself, you can pick any one of those things.
I wrote some stuff and I'd be happy to share.
Good.
First of all, thank you for this, Kimmy. This is incredible. Yeah, I have like kind of a two-part thing. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yay.
El agua, el agua está frío, está frío, está frío. No, 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 no nos va a llevar. La tierra, la tierra, la tierra está calientito. El sol, calientito. Mira cómo tembla la arena. Mis piernas enterradas. Tembla la arena. The earth trembles. Avalanches of tiny rocks. The sand fleas scramble. My abuelita wants her legs buried. Says the sand will absorb her pain. I dig a hole. Rest her wrinkled, sore feet in the sand and cover them. And for a moment, she is God. Beach creatures beneath her toes, praying for benevolence. One day, we'll be buried. One day, we'll be sand. One day, one day.
That was fantastic, Kevin. Oh my God. And I heard each part in there. The melopoeia at the beginning and the phonopoeia in the middle and the mythopoeia too. I mean, wow. Fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. I think you gave me the space to allow me to write it.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I mean, and I'm hoping that just these ideas, you can take them with you, you know, and they're just so useful to me. Because a lot of times when I'm looking back at a poem, I'm thinking, what's wrong with that? You know, well, it's not meaningful enough. It's not musical enough. It's not imagistic enough, whatever it is. And then I can just sort of revise from there. Anybody else want to share anything? We have shy writers here. Shy writers. That's okay. Think about it. I'll do one more piece of mine. I guess I'm just thinking, well, I did this for San Francisco International Arts Festival is suing the city of San Francisco because there is because they have not allowed outdoor performances with very strict guidelines. There's just been a big fight about it, and San Francisco International Arts Festival is still trying. They're still in a lawsuit, and they you're welcome. And they well, you know, that they're allowing large venues to open, sports arenas and things, but they haven't made allowed smaller performances to take place. So anyway, so what I did is I took a verse from Nina Simone and a line from Diane de Prima and then my own writing. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. And I wish I could say all the things I like to say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole round world to hear. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. The most important time to speak is when you have to say what you have to say needs to be said, needs to be heard, needs to be heeded, needs to shake, rattle, and roll, needs to challenge, illuminate, awaken, and heal, needs to liberate, innovate, demystify, elucidate, needs to reveal the craven men behind the curtain, the pusillanimous puppeteers who wallow in prevarication like maggots in a corpse. In some places, these men kill poets and artists first. They kill them for exposing the truth. Still true today. Okay. And still, let's see, no questions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that truth with us. Poets as truth tellers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what other role do you feel the poet has today, if any, beyond truth telling?
Well, envisioning, that's why I love that line from Diane de Prima, the only war that matters is the war against the imagination. Is because unless we allow ourselves to visualize, to envision new ways of doing things that create a healthier society, because in my opinion, the health society is so unhealthy. Unless we imagine what would it look like if police didn't do everything involved with problems in the community, that what would it look like to have social workers and mental health people going out to evaluate a situation? All these things, these are products of our imagination. And if we use these, if we allow ourselves to think beyond everything that we've been taught and forced into thinking and believing, we can create a better world, a new world, a more loving and just and compassionate world. So I believe that, and I think the poets often lead with these ideas.
Yeah, well said. And we're coming to the end of our hour with you, and this has been fantastic. Thanks everybody for their live participation. Kevin, thank you for sharing your awesome example there. Speaking of live performances, Kimi, you're going to be somewhere today.
Yes,
for the first time in a year.
Yes, for the first time since before the pandemic, I'll be reading in Kerouac Alley in San Francisco, in front of by City Lights bookstore, with Josiah Luis Alderete and Abe Becker, which they're wonderful poets. And so I don't think it'll be a super long reading, but at 4:00, if you have nothing else to do and want to go out in the sun and hear a little poetry, please join us. It'll be fun. I'm also reading at Odd Mondays on Monday night we're reading poems about teaching, Susan Dambroff and Brennan DeFrisco and I, and then talking a little bit about the combination of poems and teaching. So there you go, some things.
Yeah, sounds fun and fantastic. Looking forward to seeing people in person, period.
Yeah.
And more poetry, the better. So thank you again. We will wrap this one up. We invite people to tune in. We've got a few more sessions today. We got SF Poet Laureate coming back later today with Youth versus the Apocalypse, talking about climate change, and poetry. And we have Tongo again on Monday morning, bonus session, kind of closing out the session with the summit with some of his work. So all these will be available for replays online, including this one. This will be very, very valuable, and I know watched forever as people, you know, try to sharpen their craft here and look for these great ways to express themselves. So, Kimi, we can't thank you enough again for being part of this.
Thank you. I really enjoyed myself.
All right. Well, happy Friday to everybody. Thank you again for being here.
Go out and create.